The architecture of capitals, the structure of modern militaries, and the concept of a representative republic all trace back to a single ancient superpower. For centuries, the story of this empire's birth was wrapped in a foundational myth. Legend says it started with twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were abandoned in a river, raised by a wolf, and eventually founded a city near the Tiber River. The historical reality is a bit more grounded. Around 625 BC, scattered farming villages along that same river simply realized they had a better chance of surviving external invasions if they united. By 509 BC, these united people had grown tired of being ruled by kings. They overthrew their final tyrannical monarch, Tarquin the Proud, and established something radical, the Roman Republic. Instead of one ruler, power was shared through a senate and 2 elected consuls. This invention of shared governance laid the blueprint for modern democracies, but it contained a flaw from day one. The system was split between the wealthy patrician elite and the working-class plebeians, baking deep internal class conflict directly into the foundation of the state. Despite that internal friction, the republic's mandatory grew incredibly efficient. Rome rapidly expanded its borders across the Italian peninsula and soon clashed with Carthage, a massive North African superpower, triggering a series of conflicts known as the Punic Wars. After 3 grueling wars, Rome completely erased its rival. By 146 BC, Roman forces burned the entire city of Carthage to the ground, killed hundreds of thousands, and enslaved the surviving population. With the Mediterranean secured, Rome expanded further east into former Greek territories. They absorbed the culture of the people they conquered, integrating Greek philosophy, art, and architecture into the everyday fabric of Roman society. Decades of continuous conquest brought untold wealth and land into Rome. But it concentrated that wealth in the hands of a few individual military generals, making them far richer and more powerful than the Senate itself. One of those generals was Julius Caesar. Deployed to conquer Gaul, modern-day France and Belgium, Caesar waged a brutal years-long campaign. According to historians of the era, his forces fought millions of Celtic tribespeople, leaving 1 million dead and enslaving 1 million more. This conquest made Caesar wildly popular with the masses, terrifying the Roman Senate. They ordered him to step down. Instead, in 49 BC, Caesar marched his army across the Rubicon River directly toward Rome, sparking a massive civil war against his former ally, Pompey. Caesar crushed Pompey's forces and took absolute control, declaring himself dictator for life. He enacted widespread public works and financial reforms that benefited the lower classes. To the poor, he was a messiah. To the elites in the Senate, he was an absolute tyrant. On March 15, 44 BC, that elite resentment boiled over. A group of senators, including Caesar's close confidant Brutus, surrounded him during a meeting. They stabbed him 23 times, ending his life on the Senate floor. The assassins believed they were saving the Republic by removing a dictator. Instead, the assassination outraged the Roman public and plunged the state into yet another devastating civil war, one that would officially destroy the Republic system forever. Out of the ensuing chaos and years of bloodshed, Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, emerged victorious, after hunting down and defeating the rival factions, led by Mark Antony and Cleopatra. With absolute control secured, Octavian rebranded himself as Emperor Augustus. He effectively became Rome's first true emperor, initiating a 2-century period of relative peace known as the Pax Romana. Augustus ruled for 41 years. That rare stability allowed Rome to halt its endless internal wars and focus entirely on infrastructure. The era that followed saw a massive boom in monumental architecture and public works. The Romans scaled their civilization using advanced engineering. By perfecting the arch, they built massive aqueducts that carried fresh water across hundreds of miles, connecting and sustaining an incredibly vast population. Augustus successfully traded the messy democratic ideals of the Republic for order and prosperity. The empire entered a golden age, but this centralized power created a dangerous vulnerability. The entire system now depended entirely on the sanity and competence of whoever sat on the throne. That vulnerability was quickly exposed. Rome suffered under a string of erratic and tyrannical rulers. Emperors like Caligula murdered citizens on a whim, while Nero's reign was characterized by extreme financial waste and brutal paranoia. When the Great Fire of Rome devastated the city in 64 AD, the empire faced severe financial ruin. The disaster cemented Nero's legacy as a madman, giving rise to the famous, though likely apocryphal, saying that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. The empire eventually stabilized under a series of capable leaders, culminating with the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. During this brief period of recovery, Rome hit its absolute peak, governing over 1 million people in the capital and controlling its maximum territorial footprint. This era also produced marvels of engineering, like the Pantheon, which features a massive, unreinforced concrete dome that still stands today. But managing a territory spanning 3 continents proved impossible for one government. To prevent total collapse, Diocletian divided the empire into western and eastern halves. Later, Emperor Constantine would try to unify the population by adopting Christianity as the official state religion. Splitting the territory was intended to make administration easier and save the system. Instead, it permanently severed Rome's unity, leaving the poorer western half isolated. The Greek-speaking eastern half, which would become the Byzantine Empire, accumulated massive wealth and fortified its borders. Meanwhile, the Latin-speaking Western Empire fell into severe economic despair, unable to afford its military. Seeing this weakness, foreign invaders closed in. Germanic tribes, including the Goths and the Vandals, repeatedly breached the borders, pushing into Italy and sacking the starving, weakened city of Rome itself. By 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire was completely broken. In a poetic irony, the very last emperor of Rome, a boy named Romulus, was easily deposed and sent into exile by a Germanic general. The unified Roman state was gone. A civilization that had completely dominated the known world for centuries, engineering modern politics and warfare, was ultimately reduced to scattered rubble. The rise and fall of Rome leaves behind a clear historical record. No matter how wealthy or heavily armed a superpower appears, an endless appetite for expansion, combined with deep internal corruption and the loss of civic ideals, will inevitably lead to its ruin.